Los Cabos Drumsticks present
Quarter notes. Yeah, okay. Before we start, anybody who's listening, we just were chatting before, and there was a lot of cool moments. So if just want to let you know that Dre should have pressed record at the beginning.
I failed everyone.
I wanted to be on the record.
It'll forever be engraved in my tombstone. He should have hit record. That's
Dre should have hit record, Pino.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
that's
Cool.
my new. Yeah. So welcome again, everyone, to another fantastic. I'm going to precursor this episode with saying that it's going to be fantastic. Because we have a guest joining us on the podcast, and he's someone that he was on my other podcast and become real good buddies with. He's one of my favorite people in the world. Just a wealth of knowledge. He's a phenomenal drummer. He plays in a few different projects. After the Wreck, Morohubu, and one of my personal favorites, he's got Groove for Days in that project called Stinkin' Rich. His 9 to 5 is probably every drummer on the planet's dream job. He's part of the research and development team at one of the big 3 cymbal companies in the world. And we're going to get real nerdy about cymbals. Welcome, my dear friend, SABIAN Cymbals' very own Randy Ross. Welcome, Randy.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. So
Thank you.
I gotta railroad your entire thing right now. So Friday, the weekend that just went by, I made a journey to the hollow land of Los Cabos and hung out with the fam and verified my story.
Okay, perfect.
That I was indeed, and I'm told to state this clearly, the first endorsee of Los Cabos Drumsticks.
Bravo.
So that was
just as importantly, the first guest of the Los Cabos Drumsticks podcast.
So we kind of thought this would be a cool thing to kind of pull it together, but I wanted to be sure of that before I made the statement. So yeah, I confirmed it with the people at the factory and our good friends there, Phil and Steph and everybody. And yeah, it was a cool event. They were, just starting up, trying to get their feet under themselves. They were struggling trying to find even a distributor to pick them up. So they got to the point where they're just driving music store to music store with the drumsticks and say, hey, will you try these out? Will you try to sell them for us? And I was teaching at a local music store here in Woodstock, MES Music. And Dean, the owner of the store, was out front when they came in. I was out back actually working on a guitar, restringing an acoustic for a customer. And in between lessons, you do whatever you have to help out. And Dean's like, well, I don't know anything about drumsticks, but I'll get my drum teacher to come out and try them out. So I come out and grabbed a set of sticks, and immediately, I fell in love with them. And at that very moment, I was also struggling with another brand's product because I was breaking 3, 4, 6 sticks at night at jams and at shows. And by mentioning this to Larry, Larry pointed out the fact that probably because of the shipping routes that the sticks went through and how long they sat on a shelf somewhere, that they were dried out. So one of the lessons I picked up from that was to humidify your drumsticks, which I do. So yeah, I get a little
in like a wine room kind of thing?
No, what I do is I bought one of those Tupperware containers that you put spaghetti in. You know what I mean? The square ones that are like 6 inches by 6 inches by 18 inches tall.
Yeah.
And I bought a D'Addario guitar humidifier, little puck that you'd find in an acoustic guitar case, and put in there, and you fill the foam in it once a week or once every 2 weeks, especially this time of year, with a few drops of water. The little syringe comes with it. And then you put all your sticks in there and make sure the cellophane's off the package when you buy them. And then the sticks will keep at the proper humidity level so they don't break. They always feel fresh and perfect when you play. Little tip for all your drummers out there: humidify your sticks; they'll last longer.
Wow.
And they feel way better when you play. Although they will feel heavy if you're not used to them being humidified. So
right. Yeah, I thought we were getting nerdy on cymbals. Here we are getting nerdy on sticks.
And that will change the tone of your cymbals. Trust me.
All right.
Yeah.
That's
how will that change the tone?
Yeah, let's get into the cymbal stuff.
Okay, so you guys, I'm sure you're both as nerdy as I am. You've played practice pad, right? We've all done it.
Yeah.
Especially a rubber top wooden practice pad, a la the type that Los Cabos sells, and we all like.
Mm-hmm.
And you've tried to loosen your grip up and get the stick to rebound as much as possible, and you start to hear the stick make that tong tong noise, right? Yeah. And that's where Los Cabos sticks really stand out ahead of the competitors, because of the fact that they pitch and weight match their drumsticks. That when you're practicing a practice pad, you don't get that on even ting tong. You just get straight, so you can actually try to match your sticking if you're trying to get even dynamics between sticks. That tone of that drumstick also projects into the cymbal. And depending on what type of tip you have, the smaller the tip, the less of that tone goes into the cymbal. The larger the tip, the more that tone goes into the cymbal. So that's really what it comes down to. And you'll find drummers that play loose grip a lot of times will use smaller tips, because they sometimes don't want that tone coming back. They just want to hear the cymbal pure and not a lot of stick coloration. Now, we're talking strictly mostly ride cymbal is where you're going to hear it predominantly. Crash cymbals, I mean, you're hitting edge with the side of the stick. Hats, a lot of times, at least when I play, I very rarely play tip on top of the hat, all the time. But the majority of my strikes are, edge of the stick, on the edge of the stick. Yeah. But when you get nerdy into ride cymbals, and I didn't realize how predominant it was until we were testing just a little more than a year ago. We were testing Anthology, the JoJo stuff. It hadn't been released yet, and I was using my stick, and Mark went upstairs and came back with one of JoJo's signature sticks from a competitor. As much as we don't like to admit it, they exist. And at that moment, I heard a completely different sound come out of a cymbal that I did not think was possible for it to change that much based on the piece of wood you were using. So then I was like, kind of pulled my head back. I was like, how much difference does the stick make? So then I went over, we had baskets of sticks around from drummers visiting over the years. And I pulled out a Weckel signature stick, and I pulled out a Bill Bruford signature stick, and started looking for all the different tips and sizes and wood materials. And every one of them sounded different. Like dramatically different. I implore anyone out there, sit down with your ride cymbal in a quiet room, not in a playing context, like as in the drum set with jam session or whatever, but just sit down with your ride cymbal in a quiet room and take 2 or 3 different stick tips and hold your stick relatively loosely in your hand and just ping the bow of the cymbal with the tip. And you will hear a dramatically different tone. And you might learn something about your stick choices. And that's one of the reasons I'm always drawn to the red hickory. I mean, the toughness of the red hickory stuff is really great. But the other reason is because it is a heavier wood, it brings a brighter tone out of the cymbal. The more dense the wood, the brighter the tone.
Okay. Yeah, because I mainly play the white hickory, just because the weight and the the feel of the stick. So to brighten up the cymbal sound. So say if I was in a recording session and I wanted, the cymbals to speak that much louder, you'd recommend recording with a red hickory stick over a white hickory.
Yeah. Or even a heavier stick at that matter. It's just weight, right? It's a mass. It's an equation of mass. The harder, the heavier the thing is that you hit the cymbal with, the brighter the tone is you'll get out of it.
So
for equal striking power.
Yeah, it's like a law of equivalent exchange. What you put into the cymbal, it's going to give it back out.
And there's also a certain tonality. The more mass something has, the brighter or higher pitched it is by nature. So if you take a heavier stick and a lighter stick and play a practice pad loose enough to hear that stick off the practice pad, the lighter stick will be a lower pitch. So it's the stick making some of that sound that you're hearing back off the cymbal. It's a combination of the 2 items, right?
Oh, okay. So in a heavy rock setting, I guess the acorn tip versus a ball tip, what would?
Yeah, I would say in a rock setting, you definitely, the smaller the tip, again, that lessens the mass making it to the cymbal. The smaller the tip, the darker the tone. So you want to go with a larger tip, like a 5A 5B tip standard is going to sing out way better. So I use the Jazz red hickories. So I'm getting a brighter tone from the stick because I love the feel of that shape, and I love the shape of that ball tip that's on it, the barrel tip, I guess it is. But technically, I could get the same tone by using a white hickory with a 5A because it has a bigger tip. You see what I mean? There's a whole balancing equation there. But it's the feel that I want. That's the main purpose of stick. Now, the one thing I will argue if you sat down and played just the cymbal by itself, you're going to hear all this stuff. The minute that you pull the rest of the drum kit and a guitar, the classic Marshall sitting beside you cranking as loud as hell, and maybe a bass player with a SVT Pro sitting beside you that's got it way too damn loud, and maybe your in-ears are in, or maybe you got a big screaming monitor sitting beside you at the club. You're not gonna know what stick's hitting what. It doesn't matter. It does not matter.
And nobody in the crowd is going to give two shits about the tonality of your ride cymbal.
Right. And the thing is, I mean, reality is, I get it. I've hung around with enough tone chasing guitar players in my life to realize that I can't hear the difference between that amp, or this type of tube and that type of tube, or whatever. But it's undeniable that they will play better if they're more inspired to play through whatever piece of equipment they're using. And it's the same for drummers, right?
100%.
The guy in the audience doesn't know whether you're using Remo or Evans unless they get close enough to read the logos. The guy in the audience doesn't know if you're Los Cabos unless they walked up and looked at your stick bag or looked at what's in your hand and paid close attention. But if it inspires you to play better, that's what they'll hear. So I'm all about the gear chase if it inspires you to play. But I'm not so like high on myself to say that, you got to have this tip and this cymbal and everything. At the end of the day,
it's interesting point. If you are like, a context would be like maybe a jazz drummer who, is going to hear that cymbal a lot more than like the example you gave, which is like what I'd be doing or Dre be or doing, those loud amps and stuff. But like, that's interesting to know that you can go out and find your perfect ride cymbal, but if you switch sticks, it's not going to not be your favorite, but it's going to change. And
I really think you guys should do that as an experiment, maybe even do a follow-up at some point, and like your own experiment. I want you guys to see it, but even today, to get ready, because I knew I was coming on here, I went back down to the Area 51 room, popped up a really nice ride cymbal that we were working on. I won't leak any names just yet, but Brian Frasermore. Anyway, and put that on a stand, and I grabbed about 6 different stick models, and there's dramatic difference just playing. Again, it was all isolated. It wasn't with anything else, no drum kit, no nothing, just a cymbal on a stand. And I was just blown away at the difference in tone that I was getting from that. And it wasn't just the initial attack either. It was the sustain of the note. It was like the way the cymbal reacted, because you're even the contact patch of where that stick's hitting the cymbal. If you think of it like, I don't know, I'll throw out a number. I don't know. Some scientists out there will probably hate this, but say it's 45 pounds per square inch of pressure at, the tip point hitting that cymbal, and you've changed that contact patch by half as much mass. Now you're spreading that over that distance, which makes that cymbal react differently to that pressure, right? It's like being, hit with a fist versus poked with a finger kind of thing. And I did notice that the bigger the tip, the more stick I got off of it as far as the initial ta sound that we all identify on a ride cymbal. But the tone of the cymbal changed, like the sustain shortly after the attack, probably for the first, second, was dramatically different based on the stick I used.
Wow. So that's, again, I know I'm just going back to jazz. I don't play as much now, but this would have been some useful information. So I'm just going to make sure that I understand you. And if there's someone listening, make sure that they understand. If I want more stick, I could, and I have the same cymbal, I could just get a stick with a bigger tip, a larger tip.
Right.
And then there's the whole nylon tip equation too, right?
Right. The way, so that was another one I noticed today. I picked up one stick that was made of oak, competitor stick, but it was made of oak. And it had a really different tone. I don't know how I would describe it, but there was dramatically a different tone. And it was a very fine tip. Like, I would not dare use this stick because I would go through heads like crazy.
Yeah.
It's such a fine tip. Like, it was almost like to a razor point sharp, like someone just sharpened the end of a drumstick.
Like a pencil.
But I don't even know whose model it was, but it was a signature model laying there, and I tried it out, and it was just like so really different. Like, it wasn't comfortable to play, and it wasn't the sound that I would chase, but it was, again, very evident there was something going on there. So any drummers out there that want to try something cool, borrow a couple sticks from your best friends, or next time you're at the spot that sells Los Cabos, buy a few different tip styles and try them out.
Or just do it at the store. Just
Right.
grab
Right.
them all there, and when you're shopping for cymbals and sticks, just
Exactly.
play around.
So yeah, and humidify.
That's a
Yeah.
big tip. That's a good tip.
Larry's going to hate me. Their long-lasting sticks will last even longer once you know this top secret. No.
Yeah, right. Well, it's all about the feel and the weight in your hand. It has nothing to do with the
Durability. Yeah.
durability.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about spending money. I just love
Right.
it.
Right. Yeah, because we all have it falling off of
That's
us.
it.
Right?
I just want to spend money.
Yeah, I just want to spend the money. So we're gonna jump back and forth. We did this last time too. We'll jump back into some more nerdy cymbal stuff because I got some questions for that. But we're doing a new thing with picking a few drummers. And we'll try to keep it short because we have 3 people doing a drummer pick. So we're gonna drop a drummer that we've each picked as not necessarily the best or our absolute favorite, but just 3 notable drummers within a certain context. And the context for this would be groove/pocket drummers. So I don't know who wants to, I guess as the guest, Randy, why don't you give us one of your picks?
I'm going to start with Adam Deach of the band Lettuce. Adam's I got to see them at Harvest pre-COVID, so 2019, I think.
Yeah, it would have been 2019.
And I think it was that year. If it wasn't the year before, I'm pretty sure it was 2019. It might have been 2018. I'd have to go back and look on the internet. I'm telling you, man, that 2 years has really bunched up my history before that. I can't keep track of it. Anyhow, yeah, Adam Deach played with Lettuce. He can pull that funk swing, and he has all the dynamics of swing of not just fully swung or fully straight. He can play all the dynamic in between. A lot of it has to do too with the band being able to follow into that. If you've got a drummer that can do it but the band can't, then it just makes the drummer sound bad. We all know that.
Yeah.
But he's able to lean into it, and the band, of course, is every bit as capable as he is with the time feel. And impeccable pocket, impeccable groove, impeccable timing, great choices of what to use when. There's a lot of that. He does a lot of things that catch you off guard. I wouldn't have done that, but that was a really great choice, for a drum fill positioning and where he moves on the kit.
Yeah, that's something that I've been really paying attention to, is the choices drummers make within the context of the song or the whatever they're doing, drum solos or whatever, but just the choices and why they make them, that choice that leads into the next kind of thing. I find that very fascinating, and it's what gives us each our own voice behind the kit and why we're all so different. And
so when you guys take a fill, say you're playing in a song that you got the standard verse chorus, bridge, chorus, out, and at some point in every chorus you got your spot where you're going to take the fill. It's kind of been agreed upon with the band. That's an open pocket for the drummer to do a thing, and it's probably on the 3 and the 4 of the last bar of the halfway point or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do the thing, and this is something I've been guilty or I consciously think of, I set up the listener the first 2 times through with something that they would expect.
Yeah.
The time feel of the song straight 16ths. So I'm going to play straight 16ths to the first time that I do that, whatever. I might not play all 8 and 16th notes of those 2 quarter notes, but I'm going to play straight 16th subdivision. And then maybe on the last one, I'll start and play the first quarter note of straight 16th, just keep them thinking we're going there, and then finish off with 16th note triplets or something. You ever think that way about taking a fill? Where you set expectation, then break expectation to kind of catch people off guard and make it really sit out?
Yeah, I try to do that throughout the course of each section of the song. The first time we go from the verse into the chorus, I'll do a straight quarter note roll, and then the second time through I'll do a triplet, and then the next time after that I'll won't play anything at all, just to fuck them all up.
Yeah.
What about you, Rich?
Yeah,
Rich.
Kind of meh, and then whoa, amazing. That's my approach. Whatever, and then whoa.
You've heard it from the pros here, ladies and gentlemen.
No, definitely, absolutely, yeah. The triplet's a great go-to, because it is
I like doing the inverse too, because playing in the funkier bands I play in, a lot of times the songs are already subdivided into 16th note triplets. And if you get the point where you're at getting to that spot in the song and you drop straight 16th notes over top of that, it pulls everything sideways for just that split second, but it's such a cool thing. And I mean, it's a little bit of an arrogance thing. Like, I've got such control of the time, and the band is so good that they can put up with this nonsense of me going completely off the rails and then landing back on the one and feeling it, right?
It's a great feeling when it's like doing like the ski jump or like the moguls, and you go up on the jump and you're going to like land this crazy jump. And it's like, so I don't know about you, but sometimes, I have a pretty good percentage of landing the jump, but like sometimes you're just like, I'm just really gonna go for this. Then like, but yeah, if your band is tight, then that's so much easier. It's just
you can get away with a lot with a band.
Yeah, you can get a lot with
it's like a perfectly tonal metronome or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got a good band behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to drop your drummer, or do you want me to give one, Rich?
You go.
Me go? Okay. I totally forgot who my drummers were. I was trying to buy time. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, I'll go.
I got it.
Okay, you go then.
All right. So, not the first person you're going to think of when you think of pocket or groove, just because of the genre of music. But if you really pay attention to what he's doing, it's sick. And that's Abe Cunningham from the Deftones. It's just, so good.
White Pony has like been on repeat in my life since it came out. And there's just certain aspects of that album where he just, the ghost noting that he put in that album. And thank God the engineer on that album didn't take it out, because a lot of times on heavy stuff, the engineers will gate the snare and you'll never hear the ghost noting that's going on. But they left all his stuff in. It's so sweet. Yeah. Sorry,
it doesn't get in the way of anything. Like the song is allowed to breathe. His spatial awareness, and by spatial awareness, I don't mean like where he is. I mean like, his space in between notes.
What did he play? VR? No, I'm just kidding.
VR drums. That's the next.
No.
But you can feel everything. Like the emotion behind his playing is just. It's just so raw, and it's just so right on every level. And I think he doesn't get enough. I mean, the drummers know, like, if you know, you know, but like, I think he's one of those guys that doesn't really get enough of the shine.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, he's kind of one of the underappreciated one. I would put him right in the same category as far as underappreciation amongst the drum community as Sean Kinney from Alice in Chains. Sean Kinney's a deadly drummer.
Oh, so groovy.
So tasty. Again, another guy that knows how to do fills to make you just kind of twist your head off a little bit sideways, but at the same time, they are so perfect for the song.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's known, he's recognized, but he's never in the top lists of anybody, and he should be, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's a Rolling Stone list or whatever.
Deep pocket.
Yeah.
All right, Rich.
You're
all right.
We got to hear yours.
Speaking of deep pockets, me and all the money I like to spend. No,
on drumsticks.
On drumsticks. No.
You take your human a vacation and shove it up your nose.
Levon Helm is obviously from the band, and just listening to Levon over the years, it's just such a deep pocket, and the way that he plays is so unique to him. So much bass drum going on, a lot of sneaky bass drum, and a lot of like rudimental snare stuff in a way that no one else does it. And it's one of those bands that's like, at least for me, like so hard to replicate, like play a band song and have it sound like anything like the band, because it's just so unique. But it grooves so hard. And then even after the band, album that I love is called Dirt Farmer. And if you haven't checked it out and you like the band, or folk, any kind of that southern kind of folky rock, I don't know, check it out. Dirt Farmer, Levon Helm. It's an incredible album.
Awesome.
Yeah. Love it. And we still have 2 picks each left to go.
Oh man, we'll be here till midnight. This is awesome.
No, man, they're gonna like this podcast can't go longer than than the allocated hour ish. They're gonna pull the plug.
Oh, okay. All right. Man, they're really hardcore with these numbers.
Yeah, jeez. Man, super hardcore. So getting back to Cymbals, so we'll bounce back and forth just because I like the chaotic nature of this. So when I was in the factory and you were helping me pick out cymbals, we kind of had a base before I got there, and we walked around the factory, and we were testing out different crash cymbals. I remember you were holding them up, and we were testing them out, and you were checking it was like the pitch range between the bell and the bow of the cymbal. Like you were hitting the edge of the cymbal and then the bell.
Yeah. So this is one of those nerdy things that I discovered before I ever worked there. Before I ever worked there, this is something I did because I got curious one time. That was probably 10 years ago or better. So I'm a studio nerd. I like to record. I like to play with spectral analysis of things and see what's going on with sounds, and try to scientifically measure things that make us feel a certain way. Why, I don't know, but I love it. And then maybe if I understand it, I can replicate it or use it to my advantage. So I sat down one time trying to figure out why a certain cymbal that I had, I loved, and a certain cymbal I had, I hated. And in fairness, the cymbal that I hated, it's a personal thing. I had another drummer friend that had a cymbal that was very similar to the one I disliked as far as what it did. And when I found out how to measure this, he loved that about that cymbal. So what I've done, and ironically, every cymbal that I pick out, when I bring it home, I can measure, and it's the same damn thing every time. Every time. It's F sharp and C sharp relationship between the bell and the bow for me on every cymbal. So I pick a fifth. It's always a perfect fifth. And it's not even conscious. I just pick up a cymbal, and if that's the one I like, I measure it. It's always that relationship. It's like playing a power chord on the second fret of the guitar on E and A string kind of thing. It's exactly those two notes. If you hit the bell and listen closely and try to whistle or measure the pitch in some meaningful way, or you can use, again, a microphone and a spectrum analyzer, or one on your phone, you'll be able to see, and provided you got a spectral analyzer that doesn't just show you the frequency but shows you the note relation to the frequency, you'll be able to see there'll be a specific high point. There'll be a lot of other notes happening. All cymbals have a lot of stuff going on, but there'll be one primary frequency at the bell. And you can measure that frequency. And then when you go to the bow, the little cute trick that a lot of drummers will do, drop the stick down low and swing it inward and hit the bow on the edge or hit the edge of the cymbal, and it creates like a bell tone of itself. That is a separate measurable frequency. So I like things that are in a major scale tonality, and usually like a third, a fifth, a fourth is acceptable. Sixth, not so much. A seventh sounds cool, but I'm probably not going to be into it too much. But I had a cymbal that was basically a flat second. It was dissonant. As dissonant as it gets. It was like an, F and an F sharp, or an E and an F kind of thing. Like it was two notes right next together. It was like hitting the white key and the next black key on the piano together. It's like the start of a Faith No More song. Ding, ding, ding. I won't say the name of it because it's probably going to get us blacklisted somewhere, but it has the word lobber in it. Anyway, it starts with this really dissonant piano thing. And that's what that cymbal sounded like to me. And I hated it. I despised it. Now, another friend of mine that plays an extremely hardcore, crazy, heavy music, he wants that in a cymbal so that it stands out above the mix. It's dissonant. It's sore thumb. Like, here I am. I'm here to talk to you. So when I was picking Dre's cymbals, I quickly kind of dialed into the fact that he was into a sweeter sound. So I went for that relationship, and I would look for things that matched up. That way, then you end up in a nightmare. And the nightmare is, if I pick a cymbal, they all have to do it, and they all have to be within the same key.
Yeah.
So picking a set of cymbals becomes this insurmountable nightmare of measuring tones, and you could go through 30 or 40 cymbals to find them. Now, luckily, before Dre got there, I'd gone through and already done that nightmare and had it set aside. And he went around and started to change his mind on me a couple times, and I didn't influence your decision. I let you come full circle and come back to what we decided on at the very first on your own.
Yeah. But you knew what I wanted and needed before I even did.
I guessed very successfully. That's how I'd word it. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the things that I look for in a cymbal. Now, I will feel a person out when I'm showing them cymbals. I'll pick one specifically that's dissonant. And if they say they like that, then it's like, okay. They might not even know what it is that they like about it. They might not know what that is, but I've already locked that in my brain and go, okay, now I know where to take you. Yeah. So when I pick up a cymbal and I hit it, and I can hear it now when I just hit the cymbal. I've done enough of it.
I was going to ask, you can pick up any cymbal now and pretty much just strike it anywhere and know if it's within that range.
Yeah, you start to listen, you start to know. I mean, quote Mark, Mark at work, Mark Love,
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Give it
I've
up
hit,
for Mark Love.
yeah, really, I've hit, you know, a million cymbals in my life. Of course, I'm going to know what it's going to sound like, right? And
Yeah.
I've literally watched him walk by and look at a cymbal and tell me that it's going to do something before he's ever picked it up, touched. It's brand new. It's just come out of the factory and it's sitting there, and he's like, "That's going to be tight and high." And I was like, "What? Okay." So I pick up the cymbal, and sure enough, it's a tight sounding cymbal and it's high pitched, and he already has it figured out.
That's crazy, man.
He's seen enough, and I'm getting to that point. Like I can pick a cymbal up and I can feel it with my hands and know that
Mm-hmm.
it's that way.
Yeah.
God, if we didn't have a podcast to finish, I'd leave you guys and go start hitting my cymbals.
Yeah, you didn't bring any props there with you, did you, Randy?
No. Oh.
No, not well. I got some out in the other room. I got a bag.
No.
My dog is scratching at my door if you can hear something, and I've just texted my wife to come get the dog from scratching.
Oh no, that's all good. So you've been working in the research development team, I guess, learning from the master of Mark Love himself, to sort of carry on the traditions and his work, you know, because he's getting up there. So you'll be kind of becoming the face or the guy for the R&D team.
That's,
you know, if
that's the
all
intended.
goes well.
That's the intended path. Yeah. I've got a little better than a year in now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that he doesn't retire anytime soon because there's so much to it, man. Like I can't emphasize to people enough. Like it's like anything that you get good at, right? Like I mean, if you're really, you know, well, obviously both of you guys are great drummers, but if you're really good at one specific aspect of drumming, like double kick playing, or maybe it's ghost notes on the snare, or maybe it's rudiments, or whatever it is, when you dive in and realize how deep the rabbit hole goes, and then suddenly you run into someone that's like just scratching the surface, you're like, oh yeah, you know, you can talk shop with them, but they're nowhere near where you are with it. They haven't gone through the, you know, talking with someone that plays double kick. I'm not one of those guys, but drive shaft choices, angle of pedal, beater attack angle, where the weight on the beater is, the, you know, whether it's longboard, shortboard, whether it's direct drive, whether it's chain drive. If it's chain drive, what cam system are you using? Is it round? Is it lobed? Where is it lobed? High or low? Like there's so many things, right? And they've gone through all of it to get to their setup to be able to do what they do.
No way, man.
Cymbals
factory
have
settings all the way.
Actually, all jokes aside, I tend to go that way anyway. But I also have a club foot. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, with cymbals, it's a lot the same. Like there's so much to every aspect of it. Like even the elevation of the cymbal matters, but it's whether it was lathed a certain way to loosen or tighten the cymbal on the bottom side or the top side. The hammering, as much as we all like the look of pretty hammering, a lot of times people that like really linear stuff will want to come in and play like an HH type cymbal. And it's like the minute they hit it, you can see the look on their face is not what they're expecting it to be. It's like, yeah, it's gonna add a lot of distance and a lot of color to that you may not want in a rock band situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's a reason AA and AAX cymbals have been so popular in the rock community is because they're so linear and pure. Mm-hmm. You know, you throw an HHX complex up there and it's suddenly like, what are all these extra sounds coming at me?
Which is why when I went to the factory, we're pretty much specific to saying that was the only thing I said I didn't want on the kit was the complex because of that, because of the style of music that I play.
Yeah, they're really I mean, a lot of people will buy because of trends, and thank you for doing that because we're selling cymbals because of it. But at the same time, there's a certain aspect. Like I used to run a mix. I still run a mix, but it's just done differently now. But back before I even worked there, I have what I called my bright side of my kit, the dark side of my kit, specifically for crashes. So my hat side was my darker side. So I'd run my hats, and then I'd have like a crash there that was HHX. So it had a little bit of the darker character to it. Still sung out. It wasn't like dry and anything like that, but it was like an HHX. I think it was an Explosion it was Extreme originally. Then I went at Explosion after that. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of the kit, where my ride is, I had a fairly bright ride cymbal. I had a AAX raw bell dry ride for a long time. And above it, I had an AAX Explosion. So it was like verses are quiet and mellow and dark, and choruses were bright and loud and trashy, right? Like so, and that's kind of the thing I did. And that's cool to do that. But a lot of times guys want a set of cymbals just to do that job specifically. They don't want to have to think about, I got to play over here for this part of the song, and I got to play. I want something that I can go back to crash, then work together, whatever else. And that was the downfall of the way I was running my kit at that time. At that point, I had such a varying degree between the HHX and the AX I was running that hitting them back to back, they didn't even sound like they were in the same song. They were so far away from each other.
You need to have you need to have it all make sense and all, you want them to be different enough that you're going to sound different, not just always hit the same cymbal.
Right.
But you want it to be part of a cohesive unit.
Yeah. So all that to say, like every little aspect, like you wouldn't think that if you measured, like set a cymbal flat on a table and stuck a pencil down in the center hole and measured the height of where the top of that hole was, and you took identical cymbal, except for that height was off by, say, a 16th of an inch or 2.5 millimeters or whatever, that it's going to be 3 semitones higher in pitch. Like it's like a lot for that little bit of movement.
Yeah.
It's intense. Yeah. And then you can change that pitch by, I get a little frustrated in the market because people will shop strictly by grams. I've seen it so much in the last 2 years. So I want a crash cymbal that's, 18 inches and it's going to be 1,645 grams. Like, yeah, but if I raise the height of that cymbal by 3 millimeters, it doesn't matter what it weighs. It's going to be a completely different pitch. So if they think that's a pitch relationship, it's not. It might insinuate a certain feel potentially, but it depends on how it was laid. If it was feathered from the edge in, then yes, it's going to be a nice buttery feel on the outside. But if it was heavily laid to bell outward, then it's going to feel like hollow and woody in the center and heavy and dense on the edge, right? Like there's so many things that go into it. Just because it's a certain weight doesn't dictate anything to do with the sound per se. I mean, it can obviously to a certain degree, but it's not the end all and be all. There's so many more factors that I would consider before weight's even consideration. Like I can make a cymbal feel tight and like as heavy as a rock, even though it's as light as a feather by the way it's hammered. Just that alone can change the way a cymbal feels, and it will feel heavy under the stick. You hit it and it resists you and it fights back like a big heavy cymbal, even though it's the extra thin crash cymbal, because you put so much tension in the material by stressing it with the hammer. So anyway, yeah, cymbals are intense, man.
I'll regret if I don't ask you this question. What makes a cymbal? This is hope this makes sense. Buttery.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking. We all know what that means in our own heads, right? Like when you hit it, the edge kind of gives way. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's just this. Yeah,
it's buttery, nice and smooth. It just,
you feel it. You feel it when you hit it. That it's not just the cymbal tilting on the stand. It's the actual edge is like bowing down and giving you that relief.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So again, back to lathing. So one of the things we focus on at Sabian when testing. And we test by hand, real people, no machines, whatever. And we test every cast cymbal we make. When we first pick it up, if you were to pick up a cymbal and hold it bell upward and put your fingers underneath the edge of the cymbal at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and you put your thumbs on it and push like this, if you can push them both down, that's going to be super soft. If you can push that in, without like giving it, but just like a light push. If you push one in and it feels really soft, but you can't push the other one in, that's probably about what we consider to be a nice buttery cymbal. If you push both of them in, that's probably a little too soft and it's not going to really respond. It's not going to have any attack. And then you can also take the cymbal and twist it like this a little bit, and you'll feel how much looser the texture is of a buttery cymbal. And you can grab something that's not so buttery and do that, and it will fight you a little bit. So again, it's back to all that tension that you can put in. That tension can be applied by how it's lathed, how it's shaped initially, and then how it's shaped by hammering. And so there's a continuous game of lathe it to keep it loose, but not too loose so that it loses structure, which I showed Dre when he was there what a completely loose cymbal does. We had a 5-6 pound ride cymbal that was like just as floppy as water. It felt like
it was literally like just limp like this.
Wow.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's through a flanger. It sounds like it's through a flange pedal when you play it. It goes whoa, 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 whoa. All these
it was trippy.
Yeah, it's trippy. It looks fake. It looks like a slow-mo cymbal that's not being filmed in slow-mo. It's really in real time.
And it's like that because you haven't lathed it in a different direction. Like
you lathe all one direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you lathe all one direction, it will do these weird things to you.
Right.
But there's a game, right? If you lathe it the other direction, it will go all stiff, and you'll bake this basically rock hard thin piece of metal that will probably crack and break within no time because it has nowhere for the energy to dissipate. So the buttery feel comes through a combination of how thick the cymbal is, how way the hammering's done. So let's say the lather's done a perfect job and you got this nice cymbal. If the guy that's hammering that cymbal doesn't balance the hammering out the right way, he can tighten it back up and make it so it's no longer buttery feeling again. So there's this continual balance that goes through. And there's sometimes, we'll get enough of the cymbals in and, mistakes are made. It happens all the time because they're a handcrafted instrument. And we're like, okay, that needs to go back out and have a couple lines of hammering done on it. Or we need to take it out to the lathe and get them to do a very light pass to loosen it up or tighten it up maybe. And sometimes we'll get cymbals so loose, like we have certain models of cymbals that we push the envelope on making them low for complexity. The main cymbal I would say this is Evolution, the Dave Weckl Evolution cymbals, HHX Evolutions. The crash cymbals are so low and so loose to get that feel and that sound out of them that if they go too far, and I mean it's a hairline that they're walking. If they go too far, you can grab that cymbal with one hand and just give it a flip, and it will flip inside out. Yeah, and that's one of the tests that I watch the testers do. They just go like that, and if it snaps inside out, it's like, no, okay, that's going to go back out and be worked on again.
Wow.
And you would fix it by just hammering it or lathing it, and then
there's hammering and lathing. Yeah, depending on which one they think is the best path to achieve the goal, because they'll both react a little differently. So if it's got enough structure to take the lathing, it will go lathing. If it's got enough, too much, too loose to do it that way, they'll try to do it with hammering, vice versa, whatever.
Wow.
So there's a lot of little tips and tricks there just to go through and figure out whatever. And I mean, the testers, even though they're not making cymbals per se, all the guys that test at Sabian probably know the anatomy of the cymbal as well as anybody. And they know all the little techniques to get it to do what they want to do. Because they've had to go through and figure out, okay, I've got 20 of these out of the 100 that we had that need work, that are all the same problem. And maybe they talk to Mark the first time, and Mark's like, well, go try this and see what happens. And then they go out on the floor and talk to the lather or the hammer operator or whatever. They get the work done, and then the cymbal comes back and it's good. Then they lock that in the memory. Okay, it felt like this, it did this. To fix that, we did this.
Experience,
and there's like this on recorded list of troubleshooting steps that all the testers know, just inherent knowledge. And there's a bit of it that you almost don't want to record, right? Because paper can walk out of a building, and maybe that's some of the secret sauce that you don't want competitors to have, whatever. I'm sure, you get talking to cymbal makers, which I have, and I'm by far the least experienced in the room when I've had those conversations. And they'll tell you some stuff, but then you can also tell that they're not being forthcoming with certain details, right? Yeah, I knew just enough. I knew just enough when I talked to certain people to go, he didn't tell me everything there is to know about that. And I don't blame him. I don't think I would either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the R&D guy from my competitor exactly how we did X, Y, Z. Yeah, that's not a good way to do it.
We'll see what comes out next quarter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's drop another drummer.
All right. Rich goes first this time. I demand it.
Yeah.
All right. I've switched mine up because we confided one another before this. And so I've switched mine. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Thomas Hake or Thomas Hackett from Meshuggah.
So Mark and Chris Stanky pronounce it Hawk.
Thomas Hawk.
I don't know if that's right, but man,
it is today,
dude. The what is the bleed rhythm on the kick drums? What's that called? You know what I mean? There's a rudiment name for it. It's not even one of the official rudiments that they say. Anyway, ridiculous level of control.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like of such a heavy band to have everyone in the room just doing this the whole time, and it's flawless the whole time. He's
one of those guys that could play the most complicated pattern that dances around the actual downbeat, yet you still feel it the whole time, right? Like
even though he never drops it.
There's no one's playing the quarter note, yet you know where the quarter note is in every instance. You can just feel it. You can just feel it coming from the music. It's so cool what they're capable of. All right, Dre, you got to give me your number 2.
I'm number 2. All right. Again, I like that we're all picking like different, like not who you'd first think of for pocket and groove, but every one of them so far is like, damn, they've got pocket and groove. Adrian Young from No Doubt / I guess Dream Car would be the last thing that he would have put out, but hasn't done a whole lot recently, just because of, Gwen and her romance. But he's just got such like solid time, and apparently he had to work at that, because when they were going to record Tragic Kingdom, he was all over the place. Like they were going to hire a session guy to come and do the album, because it was their first like major album, and he just wasn't getting it. So he's like, no, give me a week. And he just went down and then nailed it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Holy frick. That's wicked. Yeah, he is wicked. I mean, that Tragic Kingdom album is like, again, it's one of those albums that it's been with me since it launched. And I still, to this very day, will go back and listen to certain tracks off it and just like blown away. I mean,
speaking of a great triplet, Phil.
There you Yeah, exactly. Spiderweb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we can't acknowledge his greatness without acknowledging the greatness of the bass player in that band, which I don't know his name, sadly, but man, the bass work on that album is just redonkulous.
Yeah, that rhythm section is just power.
Yeah. That's where it's at.
And that's what that other project, Dream Car, it's basically everybody from No Doubt except Gwen. Okay. So it's basically a No Doubt. It's a No Doubt album
without No Doubt.
Without No Doubt.
Can I call a TO for just a split second, guys?
Go for it.
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Right on. Sorry about that. The dog was driving me crazy. Plus, that's a great idea.
All good.
So you can cut me back in after.
Yeah. Game on.
Game on. Okay. Yeah. Car. Wayne's World.
All right.
What's your second pick?
I'm gonna have to go with Bernard Purdie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quintessential. Everyone's gonna say it, but it's just, man, you can't go anywhere without hearing that dude's influence. Yeah. And it's like through such a long period of time, right? And he's still cutting it. So I was a little late to the Bernard game, I won't lie. So it's been one of those things that probably in the last 5 years I really dug into the guy, and it's just like the further in you go, the more you're like, holy crap. Like, and all these things that you thought so-and-so did first, and then you realize he did it like 20 years before they all did. Yeah. He's just a genius, that guy. And he's a hell of a nice cat too, right? I mean, all the interview footage, everything you hear about him, he's just a genuine, awesome dude.
Yeah. SABIAN player, if I don't mistaken.
That is correct.
I heard a cool story about him. I'm like 95% sure this was him, but he would take like a sandwich board, like, a sandwich board outside of a restaurant or something, and say, like, here's the deal. But it was like something to the effect of, you're listening. He'd take this into the studio and be like, you are listening to Bernard Purdie, and like set up the sandwich board in the studio. If that's true, that is incredible. That's
awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would be so.
What a way to sell yourself. You 100%. You got to be so good to know that someone's going to stand outside the live room and be in the control room or out in the lobby and go, who is that? And walk by and see the sign and like,
I should have known.
Yeah, it's so good. The confidence that like 100% deserved. I think it's the best. It's the best.
So again, not to railroad you guys, I just want to show. I got props.
That's the real reason you took a step away there for a second.
So I was talking about the push thing. So I'll get in position.
Yeah. Oh.
So you can see how I can push that in.
Yeah.
But I can't do both. I can't do both at the same time. So you put that. But you can do the.
Okay.
Right? And that's the buttery feel.
Is that an evolution?
That is an evolution-based cymbal, yeah.
Yeah.
There, I flopped it inside out. It's that close. Right? Now it's inverted.
Whoa, okay.
Wow.
So it's that easy to go, but you can put it back easy now. Not a big deal. But that's how on the edge they are. Right? With enough strength, you can invert it.
So as a drummer, that would be like known as a heavy hitter.
You might not want to go super buttery.
Right. Okay. I was going to say you would probably break those cymbals or crack them and damage them in some way.
Now, you could take a cymbal that's not buttery or not as buttery and make it buttery by filling it full of holes.
Well, Well, there's less
That's
mass. Yeah.
Yeah, you're taking the mass out of it. Which, by the way, this is a new product we're putting out tomorrow.
Ooh.
That looks nice.
So
that's the Complex Aero 20-inch crash.
tomorrow / a week ago.
Yes, exactly. I can tell you about it now because you told me I'd be safe to. But yeah, these are like the darkness of the Complex, but with the. So when you're probably gonna ask that question. I think I talked you through why the holes and what do they do, right? So this is really awesome. You guys will love this little science experiment. You've all had the imagination of a perfectly clear pond with like perfect reflection on a summer morning. You might see just a little water bug skipping across it, and other than that, it's just a piece of glass. And you take one pebble and you drop it perfectly in the center of the pond, and the concentric waves come back out and hit the edge of the pond and whatever, and it's perfect. That's for our purpose of our discussion, that's what a cymbal does when it's not full of holes. Now, go to that pond and measure out from your center point and put sticks in all the way around. Now, the bigger the sine wave, the lower the frequency, right? So you put the sticks in, and that breaks that sine wave into smaller sine waves. The smaller sine waves, the higher frequency. So when you poke holes in a cymbal, depending on the size of the holes and positioning, it reduces lows or low mids and pushes that to the highs. So an ozone or an arrow, the trashiness you hear is actually the sound energy being converted from low frequency to mega high frequency. And the thing that I learned before I worked at Sabian that I thought was crazy, and it doesn't matter to me a whole bunch, but I'm sure some audiophile out there would argue me to the death about this. The 20 through 20, 20 hertz through 20 kilohertz argument, we don't hear anything above that. And I know I'm dropping off like 17.5 to 18K now. I'm at that age. It's just going to happen. Plus I played drums for a long time. But if you take a really high calibrated mic that measures beyond the 20 kilohertz spectrum, cymbals can reach up to 40. So animals that hear super high frequencies hear stuff in cymbals that we don't hear. And I'm sure my dogs hate arrow and ozone cymbals because they would have
practice with a dog in the room.
Probably not a good idea anyway, but yeah, even more so with the high pitched cymbals.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what you're doing. You're breaking a sine wave into smaller chunks, which is making the sine wave a higher frequency, right? Because it changes the frequency of the waves. And it also causes collision interference, which is going to cause distortion, much like hammering does. But it just basically, it stops the sound from traveling there because there's no metal to travel through. So it has to go a different way. And that's what the holes do. So I've measured it on these. If you take a 20-inch complex crash, which is what the complex arrow is based off of, we just put the hole pattern in it. A 20-inch complex crash has quite a buildup between 300 and 800 hertz. And this is completely scooped at that point. There's nothing there, barely at all. Which, if you have a tone in your drums at 300 to 600 hertz or 800 hertz that you want to be present on an album, but the cymbals are destroying that, well, you go buy some arrows and put on your kit, and now the engineer can crank those frequencies up on the drum kit and not capture cymbals in the process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you start getting really nerdy into cymbal selection when it gets to recording.
Cool. So does that like dissipate the, like it's like a fast crash as well, because everything is just going like...
It's a bit quicker because the interference waves cause it to cancel out a bit quicker, but it still sustains pretty well. Like it's not as
quick as like a China.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the midpoint between a China cymbal and a crash cymbal. It's that perfect marriage between the two of them. I've always just done the two crashes, but I'm really thinking about adding one of those on the far right side.
And if you're playing a small, like I played a gig on the weekend that was a small 60-person show. When it was sold out at 60 people, it makes you feel good to sell out a show until you realize it's only 60 people. It was great. We had a good time. Small, tight venue, intimate space. But when I took arrow crashes, because they are, even though they're higher pitched, but there's so much less mass, they make that much less volume. So that lowers the volume potential quite a bit. I mean, they can still get loud and obnoxious, but if you play them responsibly, then you can still play reasonably like you do without killing everybody in the room.
It's like the FRX cymbals, not to turn this into like a whole ad
Sabian
campaign
thing
for all the different Sabian cymbals. But
yeah,
the FRX is like the way that the hole patterns. There's a lot of testing that you guys did for that as to where to put the holes, what size to put the holes to keep the tonality the same as a regular crash or ride or hat or whatever, but just bringing that volume down.
Yeah. The initial attack on an FRX is about 4 to 6 decibels less, which is a considerable amount when you're looking at it on a.
If you're in a
mic.
club gig, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Or if you're playing on Broadway, in a musical pit, that's another spot that they're really popular.
Yeah.
So yeah, but again, it comes down to how good your sticks are and how good you use them to whether or not your cymbals are going to sound good. So
yeah, for sure. All right, let's drop our third drummer so we can come back to some more nerdy stuff. So who's up next? Is it me?
I think you're first this time.
I'm first this time. All right. So this is probably the biggest name. Everybody's probably got him on their list. Classic rock and roll pocket. Phil Rudd, AC/DC, the GOAT of rock pocket. Did I just make a new term? Rock pocket?
Rock pocket. I think that's the thing.
Rock pocket. Yeah.
I think you should put that on Instagram instantly. One thing I'll say about that dude. I went to, I can't remember what year it was. They played Moncton, Magic Mountain.
05, 06?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Anyway, went and watched the show. Was blown away. But the irony was, you'd look back under the riser because they had him parked under like the ego ramps and where the amps were and stuff. And he's sitting there playing his straight 4/4 groove, dead in, like you say, like the best pocket ever. And the only thing that changed when this camera zoomed in on him was the length of the cigarette. And so I watched long enough because it was like, wait, he's got another cigarette? Wait, there's another cigarette? And then I watched, and every time the cigarette got down so far, his drum tech would pop it out and put a lit one in his mouth. So someone was lighting the cigarettes for him off stage and just swapping them the whole time. And I was like, the only thing that changed. And he smoked 3 hours straight, the whole gig. Never stopped smoking the whole time. It's like, I wonder he's still functional. I don't get it.
That's when you know you've made it, is when you have your drum tech there.
Cigarette tech.
And a cigarette. Yeah, cig tech.
And the discipline the man has. We've all done it. We've played the AC/DC cover in the jam room with our band, having a good time. And you get to that.
You want to do a fill?
You build up into the chorus, going into, Back in Black, and you get to the chorus, you just gotta do the fill, and he doesn't.
And he doesn't
do it. And it's that discipline is insane. To stay that dedicated to the pocket, just hold it together, and it builds this tension that just works. And you do the fill, and it doesn't sound right.
Yeah. But then when you hear like the guitar solo, like especially like to Back in Black, like where he just kind of shifts it just slightly with where he's hitting the crashes and where he's accenting a little off center, and it's he's just so good.
You're so right though, that discipline, even just in the groove, to not be Phil's aside, even like to just get really excited, and I want to like hit 5 times as hard in this because I'm just rocking so hard. But like it's the sound. That's really, for me, one of the things that is about him is like the sound he gets. Like, so the velocity that he plays is so like, it's not monotone. There's levels, but it's like controlled. It's like
it's very controlled.
Those hi-hats are like just like the space. There's so spaced so well, and everything's just like not hit too hard.
Yeah, and it's also his control of like how open he has the hi-hats when he tightens them up to when he opens them. And I mean, the guy, has he ever used the ride cymbal? Like, does he even
in
have
the 70s? In the 70s, he did a couple of times. Back in the early stuff before they told him not to. I think he did, but then
but like it's and everybody knows the joke, that AC/DC's just released the same thing over and over again. But if you really pay attention to the drum parts, they're not the same by far. They're variations of, that classic groove, but they're different and interesting enough for us drummers to just geek out over it.
What's wrong with playing the same kind of thing a little bit? Like, I mean, that's what you liked about them. Lean into your strengths, guys.
Totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Who's got second?
I just want a quick aside. Just bring it back. We don't got to go deep, but on Levon, I've never heard him crash a cymbal. Go check it out. Yeah, it's always like playing, just like playing the cymbal like right on the.
Yeah.
the top of the cymbal, like not.
All right, Rich,
Anyway.
you got to take the number. You got to take
All right,
the number 3.
I'm gonna do it. All right, Chris Daddy Dave is my
Yeah.
third pick,
Yeah.
and I first heard of Chris Daddy Dave through Robert Glasper Experiment, and that Black Radio 1 album. I just had that on repeat for months and months and months, and I think he's just incredible. It's a style of drumming that I appreciate, can't replicate. I just like look and listen with awe and love what he does. So yeah, Chris Daddy Dave.
Yeah, he's so amazing. He's innovated a lot of crazy instruments over the years too, like stacks and crazy like snare augmentations and
and he does have a really cool cymbal setup. Like he's got a twirly, some stacks, like you said. Yeah,
is that the technical term for that? The twirly cymbal?
I think so.
Sabian calls it a sprimble.
The sprimble?
A spiral cymbal. Sprimble.
Makes sense.
That they're no fun.
What are you guys going to come up with next? A cymbal shaped like an octagon?
What are you going to make?
Maybe.
What are you going to make? Can we talk about the clocktagon for just a second?
Yeah, absolutely. They're all over the factory everywhere. They're awesome.
They really are.
Yeah. They're
when your cymbals keep better time than you do. The clocktagon.
Hey.
That's good.
It hits close to home. Let's go with your third.
Yeah, moving on.
I probably have the worst time in this whole conversation. So, guys, come on. So my third is going to be Todd Zuckerman. I'm going to have the opportunity to meet Todd here shortly, and that has made me deep dive the guy. And I say made. I wanted to deep dive him anyway, but I really dug in and realizing how friggin' incredible and how pocket driven he is, but also how metronomically perfect he can be without having a click counting off in the ear all the time. Like he's just amazing. He's one of the greats that he's starting to get the recognition in the last few years. You see his name popping up more and more
thanks to social media,
right? But he's been an unsung hero for so long, man. Like god tier drummer. Like he should be up there with there's the 10 greats of all time. He's probably one of them, like in my book anyway, based on what I'm seeing. Like he's just so liquid, so fluid, dynamically controlled, tasteful, like technically proficient, like everything you could ask for in a drummer is there.
And just so I love, like I do follow. I joke about the social media, but I do follow him on socials, and I love those concert footages. And like you say, he's just so fluid. He'll switch from traditional grip to match grip, just for a certain section of a song, because if it has to hit harder or he needs more backbeat, and then he'll switch back to traditional grip and do some rip and fill, and then he'll break his snare head, and then the tech will swap it out mid song. Like it's just the guy's, like you say, he's on God mode.
Yeah, he's something else. I didn't know this, but recently found out that he uses ambassadors over ambassadors as his head choice. So he's single ply top. Both? Yeah. That's got to have like super attack and super crazy like sustain and ringy, just I would think.
Boom, just
he must
days.
His tech or him must know how to tune extremely well and regularly.
I got to see him. We played a festival, shared a stage that one day. And he had one of the most beautiful drum sets I've ever seen, and a very cool stick holder. Actually, it seemed like a custom, like carved, like varnished, beautiful. Like it just,
So Dre's seen it, and he doesn't realize it probably. In the studio at Sabian.
Oh, you showed it to me specifically.
We have a table that was made by a company called Artisan Customs that Mark was introduced to by Todd.
Oh.
And this guy supplied us a table for the studio, and is one of Todd's friends that makes these live edge burl wood creations he makes sax holders, guitar stands, tables that have like stick holders built in, and a cup holder to spot to put your cell phone, a little LED light so you can see where everything is. And the LED light shines up through a 12AX7 tube from a guitar amp that's burned out, which is really cool.
That's really
so
cool.
It's like very, very musician focused products, and they're actually, in regards to furniture, very affordable for how beautiful they are, because it's like very, very high craftsmanship. So artisancustoms.com. We're checking it.
Cool to know. Yeah, it was like the whole thing was like whole experience was amazing. The kit looked amazing. And I was like, this is the most beautiful kit I've ever seen. And then he came on, and I totally agree with you. It was like you get the opportunity to see a drummer every once in a while that is just next level. Like, and you could just tell there's something, special. It's like,
Can I put an honorable mention in though? I want to put an honorable mention in for Pocket.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I want to tie to the brand of the podcast.
Okay.
And that's Pat from Brian Adams' band. Pat Stewart.
On my I almost had him on my list.
Pat invited us to come see the St. John show on this recent tour. And I mean, I've listened to Brian Adams my whole life, but I was blown away at that power, precision. Again, that dude is another one of the greats. Odds. I mean, we grew up with it, right? Like, again, God tier player, and one hell of a nice dude.
Yeah.
So that will be my honorable mention / split for third with Todd is Pat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to meet him too, right, Rich? You mentioned that in the podcast a few weeks back.
I did because of the Los Cabos connection. I met Pat a bunch of years back now. I met him out in BC playing with a fellow named Dustin Bentall, and Pat was playing with him, and then Pat got busy, and I started playing with Dustin, and he's always just been such a sweet guy. He's the best.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And he sounds it's so good to see him playing with Brian Adams again. It
really is, man. When I saw that, I literally jumped out of my seat. I was like, fuck yes. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Mickey Curry. Phenomenal drummer. There's just something about seeing Pat with Brian again. It's just really awesome. Really cool.
It feels right. It just feels right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think this is going to be the end of the podcast. I think we're going to have a part 2 because there's definitely a bunch of stuff that we didn't get to dive into.
Well, what we'll do is we'll give it some breathing time. You guys get a little time under your feet, get a bunch of different sticks and hit your cymbals with them to find out what the stick does to the tone of your ride. Play around with what your buttery feels are. You'll come up with 3,000 more questions about cymbals, and I'll be happy to come back and answer them for you.
I'll have to go back to the factory and pick out some cymbals.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Man, this is so great having you on here. You're so knowledgeable and so fun to hang with. Thank you.
Rich, man, I can't wait till we get to meet in person someday, man. If you're ever down this way, doors open at the factory. You come hang out anytime.
Thanks, man. I live in PEI. I'm
just shoot up. Shoot up, man.
I gotta come up.
Wait till the weather's better.
We need to do a Los Cabos and SABIAN factory tour again. That's what we need to do. Visit the shop, visit both shops in one tour.
It's a fun day.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's make it a reality.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Randy. Can't wait
to
see you guys. Everybody.
Thank you very much for having me on, guys. Thanks everybody for checking it out. Humidify your sticks.
Yes. Go to do that now.
Humidify the sticks. Right on. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Right on.